Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Mike Florio stirring the pot once again about a Justin Jefferson trade.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and I'm excited to draw on Quarter Sam for even bringing this up.
I'm Arif Hasan with Pro Football Network, and I learned today you don't need studio lights. You just need more computer monitors.
That and many other great life lessons on today's Minnesota football party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota football party. And it starts now.
It is the final full week without training camp. We made it. Almost. It's the Minnesota football party, a new week, Monday, July 17th. Welcome in. I'm Sam Ekstrom. I'm at Sam Ekstrom on Twitter. I'm part of the Ron Johnson Show. This show and Minnesota Sports Rankum here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Endless Vikings talk, local experts. And those local experts include Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings host, at Luke Braun NFL. And Arif Hasan, Pro Football Network, at Arif Hasan NFL. Thank you for joining us today, gentlemen. Vikings talk for the next hour or so. We're talking trade value on the Minnesota Vikings and Justin Jefferson's trade value, to be specific. Luke's going to get upset at me about that one. And we're also going to talk about camp, which, guys, we are like 12 days away from a padded practice, I think. It is coming fast. Training camp, Egan, fans in the stands, pads popping. It's on the way. A little bit of camp preview talk on today's show, which is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more. Go to FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started and find Locked On Sports Minnesota for free on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please comment. Help other people find the show and find us free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And that now includes the SiriusXM app. Luke Braun, I trust you had a good weekend. Why are you so upset at Mike Florio for raising the obvious and who wouldn't ask the question if the Vikings are going to trade Justin Jefferson?
Look, I live in a perpetual state of a little bit, at least, upset at Mike Florio. Just always there's a little bit in the
baseline.
Yeah,
that's pretty fair. I think.
I had not heard of this before you brought up on the show, and I cannot find this. Where did he say
so
this?
this is how I found it in a mailbag or Q&A where he answers a question about Justin Jefferson's trade value. I clicked on it, the video didn't play. I realized I had JavaScript turned off, figured not worth my time, and I X'd out. So I didn't actually watch.
Okay.
But that's my point.
Minnesota fans like this. Like, Florio's a Vikings fan, which is why he did. Like, what?
Yes. What do you mean? Why are they like this? What kind of question?
Enjoy anything once before you start talking about when it will leave you.
Because enjoyment creates the opportunity for the emotional damage of having that taken away from you.
You know what else is emotionally damaging? Never enjoying anything.
And then you hedge against yourself by imagining that being taken away from you so you can prepare for when that happens.
It's called pre-grieving, Luke.
Pre-grieving. You're grieving so much you just live in a constant state of misery. Hey, if a funeral is every day, I'll never get hurt.
Kind of, yeah. Because
you don't have your funeral already planned?
Here's the thing. You could get punched in the face. That would suck. Or you could punch yourself in the face. That would suck less.
It's like wearing a seatbelt face
every single day. Or would you rather be punched in the face once? That is the only...
You want to protect yourself
all
daily
the other days and go, hey, I didn't get punched in the face
from the risk of the airbag going off. In other words, Justin Jefferson being traded. You're trying.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying, look, you punch yourself once every day in the face, it's fine. And then you won't get punched. But if you were like, hey, this is a great day, I did not get punched in the face, and then out of nowhere, someone clocks you in the temple, that's worse. I'm sorry.
What about all the days where that doesn't happen?
Yeah, that just set up how bad the day it did happen happened.
Okay. I want you to go for like a week, punch yourself in the face every day, report back, and let me know how your mood changes.
You think I don't do that already?
What do you think the beard is covering up? It's like the indentation on his jawline where he's repeatedly clocking himself.
So how did Florio, because again, I did not actually watch the video. How did Florio cover this?
Is this one of those things where like, well, he could be, we don't know with it.
So this is my journey.
What his trade value would be.
Arif explained his journey to find it in JavaScript and all that. This is my journey. A little KFAN on, I think, Friday, where they were playing back the audio of Florio talking about this. I missed most of the segment, didn't have the full context. I went to look for it. I, too, struggled to find it. But if not for one video of Florio doing a mailbag, addressing the possibility, and not so much reporting this as a possibility or saying that he's heard it, but just wondering out loud if they are like dragging their feet on this negotiation because they want this to be on the table in the next year or so. That is the source of this.
Dragging their feet is like clearly not what's happening. Like,
have any 2020 first rounders signed their deal yet?
They literally, not many, because Joe Burrow hasn't signed, right?
First round, I feel like it's only been like guys that don't have a 5th-year option. Has any single
I would imagine some guys in the first round have signed extensions. I don't know who yet, but I would say it's pretty clear that the Vikings have decided to wait a year. Dragging their feet kind of implies that they're slow rolling negotiations when it seems very much like both parties have just shelved negotiations, which I think is just the
window just opened, right?
Yeah.
There's probably plenty of time, and I don't know if they're necessarily waiting a year. I'm not convinced that they are, but if they did, would that tick you off a little bit if you're Justin Jefferson because you're eligible? Why would you wait?
You're probably going to be the one that wants to wait more than the Vikings.
If I were Justin Jefferson, I would absolutely, especially because I would not have experience with injury as Justin Jefferson. So I would absolutely, I would want the receiver market to be as expansive as possible in a cap environment.
To maybe sign his deal next year.
Right.
Again, the Bengals could wait too, but
let that receiver, because right now the standard is $30 million a year, right? That's the Tyreek Hill contract, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So if you wait until, say, April 1st or April 2nd, after the first couple of waves of free agency, and the next receiver market has been set, now it's $35 million. That's the baseline,
right.
And you're the top receiver in the you're top receiver in the NFL. Madden just ranked you in 99. Right? Your negotiating leverage
got to be worth
in
something.
Your mind is pretty high. Yeah. In theory, you could have, oh God, you only had a 1,200-yard season and maybe you're not going to be able to get 37. You're only going to get 35, whatever. Right. But more likely you are going to expand the final numbers with another year in another cap environment with other standards by which you can set your negotiation against. So I think if I'm Justin Jefferson, I would absolutely want to wait because in my experience, long-term security at the moment is not a huge concern. I want that number as high as possible.
He is not this. He's not waiting to make his real boy money. He's got endorsements. Oh, yeah. He has got all his whole brand is already exploded to the point where he is making the gajillions that an NFL superstar makes.
Is there this contract
is
I'm going to sound like a real old man for a second, and that's just going to happen. I'm living with that. But is there a bigger hit among NFL players, among Zoomers? Honestly.
Maybe Gronk?
I said NFL players.
Yeah.
I am not talking about the top fourth grade recruit in the country.
Luke Braun, I'm
so
offline that you had some very alarming tweets about Baby Gronk a few weeks ago that I had just was so far removed from understanding.
Well, I was saying he was like found in a hotel dead in Miami or something.
Yeah, that was alarming.
That was amazing. I love those.
I wish I understood.
No, you don't. Actually, you don't wish that.
Nope, you're in a good
all
place.
I know,
leave that one to the kids.
All I know is that I've seen
Gen Alpha,
Baby Gronk, and Justin Jefferson in headlines with Livy Dunn at different times, and I don't know how there's overlap there.
They both have an LSU connection.
Baby Gronk does.
Sure.
In the lore.
All right.
To answer the question, I do not know if there's another I think of all of the players in college who started doing, because he was still in college when NIL started, or was he already out of it? No. So he just started doing brand deals right away when he exploded week 3 of his rookie year.
Don't you remember he was so busy doing brand deals he couldn't show up to minicamp?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So
hey, we don't need to do a contract. I'll just go make my money in Miami.
Yeah. Why does he care about an NFL contract, man?
Yeah. And I should say OTAs. He was at minicamp. OTAs.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So Vikings
First NFL player in Fortnite, man. He's doing fine.
And you know what? And if he plays the unselfish card, if he doesn't, raise a stink about the contract, has another big year, comes to the table again, that might actually play into his hands if he does hold off and puts together a 4th consecutive season of that caliber. But even if he didn't, even if he had an 8-game injury along the way, his priors are so strong and he's still so young. I'm not sure it would even matter.
I mean, it really does depend on the injury, but yes.
Yeah. Probably going to be fine. But let's say, guys, Vikings go 4-13. They go into the offseason with no quarterback, no edge rushers, no left guard, no wide receiver 2. All those guys move on. Justin Jefferson's unsigned.
Jordan Addison is still very much under contract next year. I want to make that clear.
Okay. All right. Jordan Addison, for what it's worth, might be the wide receiver.
You're not allowed
2.
to enjoy him, though, because he'll leave eventually.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
Sure. Can they? Yeah. But
everything he does, every time he gets a touchdown, you don't get to celebrate. The wisest among us will say, yeah, but he'll be gone in 2027,
Yeah. The ones who punch themselves in the face. But if Justin, let's just say he gets his betting line total, 1,400 yards. So a very good by all NFL wide receiver standards season.
Yeah, that's probably 3rd in the league in receiving.
Yeah, and so, everyone's probably mad at him. So what's his trade value at that point?
At least 2 firsts, right?
One would think.
I feel like if it doesn't definitely get my franchise a serious quarterback, that's the starting point. It has to be either equip me to get a quarterback or just give me a quarterback. And I'm not talking about Derek Carr here. I'm talking about, get me a top 3 draft pick or just trade me your quarterback.
Okay, there's no quarterback that you could trade for that qualifies as more serious than Derek Carr, right? No one is trading.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it was just no one's trading a franchise quarterback for a franchise receiver. So yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, be serious.
No. But in this discussion about trading Justin Jefferson, I absolutely will not be serious.
It's interesting because it I know that Bill Simmons used to do this. I know that Bill Barnwell did something kind of like this, where they did trade value rankings of players, where they took into account the contract and the position. So you have a top 100 of players, but instead of just kind of going off of vibes, you're who's going to get the most trade value, who's second, who's 4th, and it's just a way of determining what that player's contribution to the team that they're on is, which is just another way of ranking players. So instead of looking at the best player in the NFL, right, you're taking a look at the literal most valuable player in the NFL based on their contract and what they do for their team. And so where Justin Jefferson would rank, obviously it's probably behind at least 12 quarterbacks, but he's probably the top 1 after all 12 of those quarterbacks. That to me is worth a couple of firsts at least, and that's a minimum. I think that you would want a shot at a draft pick of a quarterback. I think you're right about that, Luke. And so it obviously depends on the team that you're trading with, right? Like 2 firsts from the Kansas City Chiefs would be paltry.
Pointless.
Right? Yeah. But especially like that team would be insane. Like it's already Super Bowl favorites, but then you're thinking like
you gotta find the team that has like in the Devontae Adams deal, like you gotta find the team that has a really mediocre quarterback that delusionally thinks the wide receiver will put them over the top. You gotta find the Derek Carr team to trade him to.
Yeah, it'll be after next year, like who is of like the 2021 class that will still think that?
That will still think what?
That will feel like they've got a quarterback going into their 4th year, and they'll feel like this is certainly the year he will break out. This is Mac Jones's year.
Sure, yeah.
This is Trey Lance's year.
Yeah. It would never be
for whichever
Chicago.
team trades for him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's plenty of young bad quarterbacks in the NFC. I mean, there'd be no shortage in the NFC.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the issue.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like David Stern appearing out of nowhere and vetoing a trade to the Chiefs. My brain is still there.
The hologram of David Stern.
Petition Congress to make this not possible.
AI is a very strong tool. I'm sure we can make this happen.
But yeah, I mean, you would need to like figure out kind of the team that's being traded to. Like if you were going to trade them to the Rams, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I could see them picking pretty high. So, we could take just 2 firsts from them. But, if it's the Chiefs, you're like, I'm going to need 3 firsts and 2 of your best non-Mahomes players. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's and that'll give us the trade assets to trade up into the top 5 with our own 1st round pick. Like that's kind of what you would need to do.
Yeah.
It's so hard to imagine it like ever act like any realistic scenario where it turns out like profitably, which is why this feels like such an unserious conversation.
Which 2 players from the Chiefs would you take in that scenario? Like 3 firsts and you get 2 players from the Chiefs. You don't want Kelsey, right?
He's probably too old by then, right?
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I'm sure he would veto it. He's like, why would I? I'm out. Bye. But
I mean, this is not a positional value, but I would like Joe Tooney. That wouldn't be bad.
Okay, I get it. That's fine. Who else? Who's the second?
Always McKinnon.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, we throw McKinnon as a throw-in.
McKinnon gets to be part of it ceremonially.
Yeah. What about Karl-Loftis?
No.
Why?
He just has to be good first. Like the contract's great, but he could be about to be good. You could probably take one of those corners, right? Those corners are very good.
Sneed.
Like, you're like Sneeds and Watsons and all them.
McDuffie, 1st round pick.
Oh, McDuffie. Actually, now I'm on board. Thuney, McDuffie, 3 firsts. Bye, JJ.
There's someone on the Chiefs named DiCaprio Boodle.
Yeah.
No, wait, hold on. Oh, I thought it was Booty for a second. Boodle.
No, it's Boodle.
DiCaprio Boodle.
Mm-hmm.
That
you
guy's
throw him in with McKinnon?
That guy's got to come back in the trade. Yeah.
That's 4 players.
Give me the man named DiCaprio. Is there a rule?
That's not the interesting part of that name. I'm sorry, Sam.
Both names equally interesting and fun
Not
to say.
equally.
Definitely equally. DiCaprio?
Yeah. So now I've got Hey Leonardo stuck in my head. She likes me for me.
Leonardo's got a big movie coming out. So is there a rule in the NFL like the NBA, like where you can't trade consecutive firsts? Is that just the NBA?
I didn't even know you couldn't do that in the NBA. But there's no such.
Pretty sure just like it has to be like 3 years out. Or no more than
you can't trade more than 3 is what you're saying.
Yeah, right. You can't trade a 2026 draft pick until the 2023 draft began.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got it. All right. Who else? Actually, after this, we're going to talk about other trade values, more realistic trade values on the Vikings roster if things go terribly for the Vikings before the 1st of November. who might actually be a legit trade piece at the deadline. We'll talk about that after a word from FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. You can make every moment more at FanDuel.com/Locked On, and you can bet baseball. You can bet the Twins tonight in Seattle if you'd like. They are underdogs at plus 120. Get a little plus money on Sonny Gray pitching for the Twins. And if you're a new customer, you can get 10 times your initial bet in bonus bets back. So bet 20, get 200 in bonus bets. Win or lose, it's a great promotion, one of many at FanDuel. Safe, secure, easy to use app, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel.com/Locked On, the website, FanDuel.com/Locked On. Get those bonus bets. It's FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, trade values. Minnesota Vikings. Deadline approaches. Vikings are 2-6. Who they dealing and what are they fetching in return? I will start with Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport. The two edge guys might be both on one-year deals. Could be a Yannick Ngakoue situation. Arif, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Danielle Hunter was the first name that popped up when you mentioned potentially trading away Vikings players midway through the season. I think that's probably kind of where you put yourself. Otherwise, maybe Harrison Smith, just to get some final value out of that. But yeah, and then that defense would essentially, like, without Danielle Hunter, Harrison Smith, the defense would look essentially unrecognizable from 3 years ago, right? Actually, yes, I don't think there's anybody left after that. But yeah. I think that's probably it. You wouldn't trade any of the people on rookie contracts, I don't think. You wouldn't trade any of the new acquisitions like Byron Murphy. I can't think of anybody on offense. Maybe KJ, but like what would he fetch anyway? Probably not enough to justify it.
What about an unsigned TJ Hawkinson, an unextended TJ Hawkinson?
I thought about that. I don't love it. He's like young enough that he would be part of any next window. I mean, so is Hunter, but Hunter seems much more willing to like leave. And so that's one where you're more willing to play around with that trade. But Hawkinson, I just think that like it is a little bit harder to find Hawkinson than Hunter, even though Hunter's a better player. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, maybe there's a scarcity.
Vikings.
There's also something to Hawkinson is a Kwesi acquisition, and Harrison Smith is somebody that was already here when he got there. I don't. That doesn't like factor into the general value of those players, but I do feel like it's more likely that you're going to move somebody you didn't pick than someone you like hand chose and made a move for.
Yeah.
So who do you think has the most value of those that we mentioned that are realistic? Probably, like, let's say that
halfway through the season, probably Hunter.
Yeah.
After he's demonstrated capability, yeah.
If he and Davenport both have 6 sacks, trade Hunter for a second. I bet you could trade Davenport, though, for a 3rd or 4th.
If he gets 6 sacks in half a season, yeah, it feels like that quells a lot of the reasons that his value would not be very high right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you get at least a second, and the only reason you wouldn't get more is because of the length of the contract.
Yeah.
If he was extended, then I think you could get a 1st, right? Because what did Khalil Mack go for? Like 2 firsts and a second, something like that. Some crazy.
Which time?
It was definitely multiple firsts. Wasn't there a player involved too?
A lot,
probably. Yeah, it was quite a bit. But if he's extended, right? If you're trading a better contract, a longer term contract, then yeah, I think you'd be able to trade 6 sacks on pace for 12. After having like the pressure totals that he's had and stuff like that. I think that you could get him for at least a 1st, not a Khalil Mack type trade, but at least a 1st.
To the Bears, it was 2 firsts and a second back, or 2 firsts and a third with a second back,
with the second
and then some late round stuff.
Yeah.
As a quick aside, did you guys notice that Harrison Smith was completely left off the ESPN top 10 safety list based on executives and NFL personnel votes, and he wasn't even an honorable mention or receiving votes?
Classic.
The not honorable mention one is a little bit surprising, right? Which also means, I guess, not receiving votes is a little bit surprising to me, but not top 10. Not enormously shocking. I guess if I were to put together a safety list, I might. And I did put together a safety list. I don't remember where I ranked him. But I wouldn't say that that's a surprise or anything like that. I know that Brian O'Neill was left off the top 10 and was an honorable mention, but I don't know if that was exclusively at right tackle or across the NFL at all tackle positions.
Where did
I saw an aggregation of it. Darrisaw is in the top 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Darrisaw is certainly, I wouldn't even think, this is super unrealistic. Darrisaw would have massive trade value.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would make me question what exactly the plan is. What plan do you have that Darrisaw doesn't need to be a part of it?
That maybe he wants to go back to the East Coast.
He wants out. It's flyover country.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just loves Virginia, man.
We laugh. Wait till he gets a contract. People will be saying it.
I mean, yeah. Protect yourself, right? Got to punch yourself first. You got to be first to the punch. I don't know what to say.
Got to be first to the punch. Is that where that phrase is from?
That's where that originated. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously Darrisaw is homesick, so you trade him to Washington, right? The place where he would thrive, right?
A place where players famously want to go desperately.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
and
homesick,
demand trades
and
too.
Then Jefferson you trade to the Saints, and then everyone's like mad forever because of it.
That's what we deserve.
Knee-jerk prediction. How many trades will Kwesi execute between now and my birthday, November 5th?
0.
After the trade deadline.
Right.
I think there'll be a couple on cut down day, random little ones. I'll say 2.
Like 4th round.
Not even like 6th round for
conditional 7th.
Yeah,
Jesse
conditional
Davis
7th for a
trades.
guy that's going to get cut week 3. Yeah.
The answer last year was 4.
Yeah, well, because there's the Jesse Davis away, Ross Blacklock in. If we're including all the way to the trade deadline. Rager and then Hawkinson. Yeah. I don't see a Hawkinson style trade coming. I mean, it would be fun. It's just good content. But I don't see a Hawkinson style trade. I could see like them trying to like scrape the bottom of the barrel in terms of value, like the Jesse Davis trade, to try and just like, there's a market for this guy. We might as well. I could see that. A lot of it feels like teams just don't put in that effort. Which that's not like teams are lazy. Teams are famously not lazy. But like, it's just maybe your effort calling GMs to try and extract that last second of value could be better spent elsewhere, right? Like, I'm not saying, but it seems like teams generally don't try to extract that like minimal value for like bubble players that could make the roster for most teams, but are not for whatever reason going to be able to make the roster for your team. They're just like, yeah, let's cut them.
There are a couple of contract situations that could happen. That could go down that way. Like I was just looking at, let's say like Dean Lowry has a really bad camp, and it's like this Dayton Jones thing where like, oh wow, this dude like actually sucks and he's not even going to make the team. But trading him is significantly more cap efficient than cutting him. So you might then do the Jesse Davis move, which is why Jesse Davis got traded instead of cut.
Because of the cap implications of
he had like half of his money was in guaranteed base salary, so they just gave him to someone else and said, give us whatever draft pick makes this legal.
Draft capital next year for the Vikings. In terms of what could they give for a Hawkinson type deal, they've got a 1, 2, 4.
Couple of 5s, I believe. Or no, just 1 5.
Well, they gave one up in the Rager deal, so I think it's 1.
And they got one back.
They got one back in za'darius. And they got one in...
I think they traded down.
There was another draft day trade.
In the draft.
Yeah. So I want to say 1/5 after all that, 6th and no 7th. So it's not like it's not a plethora of riches. They do have that 2 if they wanted to swing that for a Hawkinson deal.
Did anyone from the Vikings get hired as a head coach or general manager somewhere? Maybe that would help. Throw in a third, you know?
Is it surprising that Rick Spielman isn't working, like other than the 33rd? I don't want to diminish the 33rd team.
You meant for a team. I understand. Yeah. How often is it that general managers get a second crack? It seems fairly
third
rare.
crack.
but not even in that
I didn't mind
position,
him.
but just as something.
I think if he wanted to, he could. It feels like he is trying to do the media thing, and he doesn't want to go back into a team right now.
Yeah, and it is pretty rare for a GM to take like an assistant GM job. Like obviously, the Vikings have one with Grigson, but like it's not very common. And like
he could probably go get a job with the Broncos with a phone call.
Yeah, easily. So,
little camp preview talk. Camp starts in like 10 days. Very exciting. I want to know who the stars of camp are going to be, and those that will sustain, the stars that are legit. And then there's always the shooting stars, right, that expire very quickly, but they produce a lot of hype in week one. I think of Cam Dantzler, thinking of BC Johnson, thinking of Andrew Booth last year. Let's start with the overhype stars. Luke Braun, give me a name. Who's going to wow? Who's going to gather all the headlines? Who's going to be talked about segment 1 of Locked On Vikings next Friday and then cease to exist about a week after that?
Cease to exist.
Cease to exist. It's got to be a receiver because of how bad the corner room is. It's Naylor. Sorry. He's gonna kill some twos and then just kind of be a wide receiver 4 that gets like 1 rep a game.
That's more damaging than the one I was going to pick, Tristan Jackson. But like, okay.
Oh yeah. There'll be some like third team, some like Malik Knowles that like gets a really cool preseason touchdown, but actually wasn't good all preseason and gets cut. And we're like, what happened? We lost him.
we lost him.
Yeah. Knowles is
Slow
my
to
guy
come back.
All right, Arif, any names to nominate?
Well, I picked Tristan Jackson.
Oh, Tristan's your guy.
Yeah, my guy to fail. But yeah, I just feel like he's got familiarity with the offense with Cousins. He does a pretty good job against the twos. I just feel like he's perfectly set up to fail.
How about the kicker? I feel like we've had this in the past where the backup kicker or challenger has a very fast start. And we're usually super eager to move on from the previous guy. So
what does a
if
fast
the kick
start look like for a kicker?
Not missing kicks.
7-7 in no pads practice. 7. I mean, all the beat writers like standing there, like writing down each field goal.
Tracking every kick is so
your Twitter timeline fills up with like, and he made it from 43, 55.
Getting hyped for
Podlesny from 47 right hash.
Yeah,
good.
Was it Riley Patterson that like didn't even get to kick? He was like hurt for 2 weeks and then they cut him.
He did not get to kick in OTAs and mini camp. Training camp, I feel like he got real close to kicking and maybe did get a couple of kicks in, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I want to say that last year, Patterson's had a nice little career. Gabe Burkich got cut before camp last year.
That's right.
He didn't even have the competition. So
I think I put him on my 53 too. I was like, Gabe Burkich, Oklahoma
beat Greg Joseph.
Yeah.
Vikings would have had like 500 pounds of specialists between Ryan Wright and Gabe Burkich. It would have been electric.
What could have been?
The
linebacker specialists would have been nice.
With the amount that Greg Joseph is guaranteed, it does not feel like this is a serious competition.
Yeah, you got to keep your Rolodex updated.
Which is...
Yeah. That kind of feels like what this is.
Yeah. Just a big mistake, I think. I feel the exact same way about Joseph.
Yeah.
Hey, he kicked some game winners, so that's how you know he's good.
He's clutch.
Clutch.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But cornerback wise, I would look to like Mekhi Blackman. I feel like there's always a rookie. We're always trying to cling to who's new, who's fresh, who can we latch on to as the hope, the great hope for the future. And if Mekhi Blackman has a good start, he's playing a little inside-outside, has about all it takes is, 2 pass deflections, Braun, for the Twitter machine to get going, for people to retweet. There's going to be a video from the stands. Mekhi Blackman shuts down KJ Osborne on a rep. That's all it takes to generate he had a good practice, right? The bar is set so low that he
could get corner is kind of like that too, where like you can make one play all day and you had a good day.
Well, so he could have 2 pass deflections on KJ Osborne or half a pass deflection on Justin Jefferson. right? It could be like he gets his hand on the ball. Jefferson eventually is the one who catches it, but he'd be like, that was a good rep. What was he going to do about that? And we'd be like, that was a good day. I mean, he caught the ball, but it was a good day.
There's also this big difference between like, hey, you had a good day in camp and in practice because we don't expect you to, and then you actually have to like start and play, and then you get beat a whole bunch. And it's like, I thought he had a good camp. It's like he had a good camp because he was in a position battle. Like for a guy, we didn't know if he was a starter or not, but now that we know he's a starter, the standard changes. So I can see that.
Yeah, our judgment of what counts is. I mean, that's kind of the thing that beat writers were struggling with Andrew Booth, is kind of adjusting his performance for expectations, right? Because when he was running with the twos, and then occasionally he would pop in the ones and get like this crazy pass deflection, be like, "Hey, that's pretty good." But he's supposed to start, so like the fact that the very next play he gave up a long touchdown to Adam Thielen, who could not replicate that feat during the season, I should add. Maybe
he had a fun camp.
Yeah, right.
It was interesting. Maybe
we should take that into account. Maybe we should take into account the deep ball he just gave up to Adam Thielen.
Comment below, who is your favorite short shelf life dying star? Comment on YouTube, Locked On Sports Minnesota. Find us also free and available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, who's going to actually look good and actually be good long term? Who's going to...
Justin Jefferson. I know I'm bold. I know I'm putting it out
Not a
there.
great camp player. Not a great camp competitor. Haven't seen a lot from him in camps. What do you think? What do you think, Braun?
I was going to go with Ivan Pace. I feel like it's really easy to like be part of an interesting blitz and then look like you made a good play. It'd be like very like obvious. Oh, look, Ivan Pace. He's all over the field.
Doesn't that make him a candidate for the previous category that we just talked about then?
No, but then he'll actually like be part of blitz packages. What if he like actually gets in and is involved in the defense and it's real?
Yeah, it's pretty optimistic, I think. I'm going to go with Andre Carter. Same reason, basically. I mean, not blitz packages, obviously, but like, it's pretty easy to win against the second team tackles.
It's
he'll
almost
get some second team reps as all the first teamers are out.
Yeah. As they're holding out or injured.
Otherwise, he'd be taking on like Allen Ali.
if Ivan Pace gets noticed at all, besides Luke Braun tracking who's on like kickoff team, I'll be really impressed, because there's no position where it's more difficult to stand out than like backup linebacker at camp. You're not going to make intercept. Like odds are you're not going to be involved in many. You're not going to be targeted very often, if at all. You're not going to sack the quarterback for real. You're not going to make a tackle for real. So there's not a lot you can do to make the common fan appreciate you. So really all he could do was like, he could work his way into some like first team reps. That would be the best thing he could do. Maybe there's an injury and you can tell that he's favored in the team's eyes. That's about the max that Ivan Pace can do. So I would love to see him stand out in a meaningful way, because that'd be rare.
What about like Brandon Powell? Because I feel like it's easy in camp to tell how the punt return job is going. So if he's winning it, like that would be real. And also like as a receiver, the bottom of that roster is like wide open. It's another thing that like if he starts getting into that fifth spot and we're going, Rager might be out. That kind
Powell
of thing.
flashed to me at OTAs and minicamp. And also when you look at the way that O'Connell and Cousins reacted to Rager in the documentary, screwing up his route, kind of makes you think it's a regular occurrence. Versus compared to when Justin Jefferson screwed up his route, there's a little more forgiveness there.
I'm going to twice in the same game too.
It was, yeah. I'm going to say, I don't think we learned anything new about Rager from the documentary. Like we knew they were both frustrated with Rager in the moment and after the game. So I wouldn't say that that's like any new information. It might refresh our information that is like relevant. Like, oh, this guy just is not, he doesn't get his P's and Q's, right? Like he's not on assignment. But, I feel like the fact that Rager kept getting snaps after that was also significant, right? Like, and man, that is like, okay, so not to like rehash the documentary a lot, like Cousins is very like, I blame myself both for quarterback PR reasons and because he has like a tendency to beat himself up. But man, he was livid at Rager. And I when you have like some, I'm not going to say reasonable expectation of privacy, but when you're not like in front of a microphone, right? And you just tend to forget you're wired up. Like that's just what happens to NFL players and literally everybody if they've been wired up all day. But you like, I have no issue with him just being like that MFer, man. I have no issue.
No, that's totally. I mean, don't run the wrong route, man. You will get yelled at. Like,
yeah, it's like
that's how it works.
That's interception on my box score, not his, not my fault. Calms down for like 5 minutes, gets back out there. But like, yeah, I just feel like the fact that Reagor kept getting play late in the season, and they like installed these cute little goal line packages involving him for some reason, I think tells us that like they're kind of beyond that. Now he has no latitude to screw up in camp now, but like, right. I don't know that they're as done with him as we would think.
He certainly gets a chance. I think with Powell, it's if that is going poorly for Reagor and well for Powell, it will be very easy to tell at camp, which is I think what makes him the answer.
No, I think you're right. Mm-hmm. It's who else? I mean, I feel like edge rushers in general, it's kind of not easy, but like you get a good sense of it, right? Safeties is impossible.
With you charting like the O-line, D-line one-on-ones, that's been predictive, yeah?
It's been predictive. It's been a little bit less predictive the past 2 years. But it's generally been very predictive of like who's going to make the team and even to some extent who might do well in the season, which is like a lesson I should have learned a little bit earlier because I was like, Matt Cleo struggling against Jared Allen is like not a big deal. I'm not worried about that. Things you learn.
Is that a 10-year-old camp anecdote? 2013?
I mean, he was struggling because what
that would have been the last year Jared Allen
2013. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, because he had just coming off of like a pretty good rookie year in 2012, and I'm like, I'm not worried about this.
Yeah, and it was the first inkling that something may be amiss.
Yeah, something was awry. And then he got a bad PFF grade in preseason, and you're not supposed to ask questions about that. So,
what if Vidarian Lowe keeps getting first team reps over Oli Udoh while O'Neal is out? What if he's sneaking into one of those backup jobs?
Yeah, and I think they're cross training Brandel to make him more inside capable. Because I'm not convinced
they just don't have guards. It's like but
it's very strange. You could have, but
it's like Chris Reid and the Pussycats. Like there's just no one else besides Chris Reid.
Yeah, there might literally be. Unless you count Oli Udoh or Blake Brandel, there's literally
I think
Alan Ali plays inside.
I just put together like a list of like 11 free agents the Vikings could sign because they've got like 18 million in cap space right now, right? Obviously, there's going to be extensions, or they want to reserve some of that for extensions. But like one of them was a guard. Like Dalton Risner is available. Like first of all, he should be starting above Ed Ingram, period. But like second, like. That's like if he's your backup, you're in an insanely good spot. He could play all 5 positions.
It is interesting that the team with Chris Cooper on it is not going after him.
Okay, that's a good point, actually.
Hey, that is a good point. Quick bow on the documentary, which I had not finished as of last recording. You guys had. I loved the Colts footage. Whole game, like everything about the Colts game was great. Post game was awesome, and maybe it's because I'm a dad, but the footage with his son just getting the strawberries on his plate and him like rejecting the chicken finger, and then the dad being like, "No, like I'm gonna put one on just in case you want it," and then getting his cookies.
Oh, that was funny.
I love good moderation, son. One cookie, like just that relatable scene to me. I was like, "Oh man." I love Kirk, Dad. Like
that was very cute. Like the kid, like I don't want any chicken fingers, and Kirk being like, "I know better. I know what's going to happen in like 10 minutes."
This has happened a lot.
I mean, okay, I will say like I already mentioned what I thought was like the most human moment from Kirk, which I already forgot what I said it was. But probably the closest competitor to that has to be have you finished it, Sam?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the
car at the end.
Yeah. Like the coming back from the Giants game, driving home, And like, first of all, like after getting destroyed for no reason, right? Because you lost. And then driving home, going over the 3 biggest mistakes in your head as you're driving home. And then you're like, oh, I gotta like bathe the kids, put them away, read them, He's a praying guy, so he prays with them, at the end, like, and the kid being like, and the mom being like, did you watch the game? Yeah, we won. No, we didn't, son. Like, oh my God,
man. That car ride felt like the only time in the whole documentary where Kirk legit forgot that there was a camera there. Like that felt like the kind of candid conversation that was like actually the real way that they will discuss a loss afterwards.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking, man.
Yeah.
And then his wife just tossing in, oh, it's trash night.
Hey, life goes on. That was a really good thing to keep in the edit, right?
Uh-huh.
Just like
I love it.
Life continues apace. Sorry,
absolutely love that. Yep.
Yeah.
Get over it. Y'all got work on Monday.
And maybe I wasn't savvy enough to detect it, but like I didn't realize when the first episode or the first scene of the first episode was him reading the book.
Right. I didn't realize
that was the post-game story. Yeah, that was good work on Netflix part. Yep, loved the show. I thought it was really well done. For sure, Mahomes and Cousins part. I think that Mariota maybe ended up being a little bit of a dud from my perspective. But if they do this every year, it's gold. And I think that Netflix is kind of figured it out.
Production company was involved with it, so it would be. You're probably not going to do Mahomes again.
It's Mahomes every year and 2 other guys.
They announced they're doing the women's soccer team. I don't know if it's the same thing, but that's like the next sports documentary that Netflix
is that the one that Brittany owns? Co-owns?
No, like Megan Rapinoe and
like the U.S. women's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it'd be her
and
last
Alex
year
Morgan and Alyssa Thompson.
Because Megan just announced her retirement, so it'd be like her last year too.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
I mean, Netflix has figured this out though, right? Like Drive to Survive, Full Swing, Point Break. I think they're all renewed. Like I think they're all
struggle to argue that Netflix has figured anything out.
Password sharing bit, yeah, not going to comment on that. But
not even that, but like successful shows they will cancel, right? So like, not to get too in the weeds, but like, obviously there's a whole writer's strike. I'm not going to talk about that, although that is like very relevant. But rather that like Netflix will see a successful show, offer everybody raises, people sign on to those raises. Those raises are not guaranteed, right? And then they will cancel the show and take the tax losses, like, which ends up being better for their bottom line. HBO does this more aggressively than Netflix, but Netflix cancels successful shows all the time. So no, Netflix has not figured it out.
All right, well, let's soften it a bit. For the moment, in this snapshot in time, Netflix has cornered the market on in-depth
sports documentaries.
In-depth sports documentaries about the players. You know what I also appreciated about Quarterback, last thing? I appreciated that there wasn't like a voice of God narrating you through every obvious detail. Like this was the problem with the golf one, is they were like a birdie is when you are 1 stroke below par. The cut is when you do not make the top 50 in the tournament. Like the most obvious terminology that golf fans groan having to hear every episode. They didn't have that in this show. They didn't have a segment where Justin Jefferson is the Vikings Pro Bowl receiver. He was drafted in 2020, and he is very good.
Do you dislike it when Hard Knocks does that? I think they handle it pretty well in Hard Knocks. They're just like,
there's a way to do narration.
Well, okay, but
there's a way not to do narration though.
Because when they did introduce JJ Watt for like the Texans Hard Knocks thing, they had a narration, but he comes off looking like a god, which is what they're going for, and I think it works. But the narration was like a critical component of that.
I think Hard Knocks uses the narration to introduce an element or a player that they're going to then feature their personal life. So that's like how they set the table for it.
So you mean like you don't want like a touchdown is when you score 6 points and you have an opportunity to score. Like, okay, I get it. I find that interesting because the some of the conversation on Twitter has been like Quarterback is like very like there's too much. It's holding your hand. Anybody who seriously knows football will get nothing out of this, which is just like a weird conversation, I think, to have.
Yeah,
I mean, Luke,
that is
you
an
saw
insane take.
Yeah, but it's just like anybody who knows
Those are people that don't like football.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I understand, like, if you're a little bit less interested in the human interest side of football, literally, that's me. I'm just not.
It's all fantasy people saying that, which they are. I mean, it's a stock game to them. Like,
yeah, it's just so weird. It's like, okay, I get that you're not impressed with what is essentially a parlor trick for quarterbacks to recite like long plays or whatever. It is both a genuine skill and a parlor trick, you know. And I get that you're not impressed by that, but it's like the idea that the average football fan would not enjoy that is crazy to me.
There are like high school coaches that I follow on Twitter that have been since it came out being like, oh, this is a fun play that they said. This is a fun, like huge threads of all of the different cool play calls that they got to
hear. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, yeah, Twitter's going to be all over these play calls.
Yeah, Coach Twitter's going to define every single word they hear. And that's, yep.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So, yeah, it's interesting that you say that because it feels like there are some people that thought it did hold your hand throughout the entire process. And I'm sure there was other people on the other side that feel like they didn't explain enough to me. It felt very weird going into the Colts game, not fully knowing the stakes or something like that.
Interesting. And maybe there's probably a cross section of fans that would have wanted more of that. I didn't feel the need for them to introduce, I guess, every character. Like, I didn't need them to tell me, this is Andy Reid, the Chiefs coach, and this is why he's important. This is like where Kevin O'Connell came from. I was fine with them omitting the superfluous characters details and just focusing on the subject, the quarterback. That was fine with me. They didn't waste time that way. They kept it moving, focused on the subject. That's my point.
It was tight storytelling. Yeah.
Yep. Not always, narratively or chronologically kind of linear, but that was okay. I think they did a good job.
That was a bit jarring. In fact, I think if they had narrated it with their 6-2 heading into this game, which you did see like a Chiron telling you kind of the records of the team sometimes. But if they had narrated and drawn attention to it, it would have made the fact that it wasn't entirely linear, I think, a little bit more obvious, and it would take you out a little bit more of the story.
They kind of glossed over the Vikings getting from 2-1 to 6-1. Like,
they didn't have the London game at all. I was like, hey, that's my moment. This is the last time I covered this team as a beat reporter that season, and I unfortunately was fairly a dominant voice in the Kirk Cousins press conference.
Yeah, none of us made it.
I didn't intend to. Yeah, I was kind of, selfish, but like I was kind of hoping. I was only there for the first 4 weeks. I was kind of hoping to make it.
Chris Thomason gets in there several times, and we're left in the cold.
Yeah, Reggie had an appearance. Judd had appearances.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Little Dan Barrerio.
Yeah.
Barrerio.
Yeah, no, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
We love Barrerio tacos.
Yep. I, a local Minnesotan, am familiar with him.
Luke Inman rejoins the program on Thursday's show with Luke Braun and Arif Hasan. Make sure you check out Locked On Vikings, Luke Braun's daily podcast, and Arif Hasan's work at Pro Football Network. And thank you for watching and listening to today's Minnesota Football Party. We are going Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in our Locked On Sports Minnesota Roundtable with Ron Johnson and Reggie Wilson. That's on Fridays. Content every day here on this network. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Arif. I'm Sam Ekstrom, saying goodbye for today on the Minnesota Football Party.